I'm Dr. Andy Kaufman, recovering physician, plandemic whistleblower, natural healing pedagogue, and legal code talker. You can call me the Truth Doctor. I'm here to shift your paradigm as I perform a radical forensic dissection, discerning fact from fiction, science from pseudoscience, medicine from poison, law from legal fiction, and individualism from collectivism. This is your channel for unraveling the truth about health and science. This is the Healthy Living Livestream. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Andrew Kaufman, and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about Shilajit. Is it legit? So before I get going, and I'm going to start off with a little video to show you what it's like to actually harvest Shilajit, let me just remind you that if you sign up for my free newsletter, you'll be the first to know about special discounts and offers, including about the subject of today's live stream. And when you do this, you have the opportunity to get a lot of free resources. For example, my masterclass on how to avoid the emergency department, along with accompanying PDF documents that are very, very useful to handle most common medical emergencies at home. Just by giving your email address. So please go to andrewkaufmanmd.com and sign up. Okay, so I thought I would start us off with a little clip from a mini documentary about Shilajit that highlights an individual and his son that are the members of the village that are still willing to go out and find and harvest some Shilajit because of its high value. And I'll let you take a look right here.
This man is hunting for an aphrodisiac that some people have called a natural Viagra. It only forms at high altitudes, like here in the Himalayas. One misstep and the drop is 15,000 feet. People across South Asia have taken Shilajit for centuries to improve libido and to treat infertility.
शिलाजीत की जो आज तक मेजर मार्केटिंग हुई है वो एज ए टेस्टोस्टेरोन बूस्टर हुई है.
Now, people are paying hundreds of dollars to get their hands on it. But while it's soaring in popularity around the world, so are the fakes.
लोग तो कभी-कभी ऐसे लोगों को ठगा लेते हैं कि शिलाजीत है ये है वो, कोई लोग नकली भी बेच लेते हैं.
So is Shilajit really a miracle product? And is the risk of finding it worth the hype?
Well, I think you might find that interesting, especially that at least in the Himalayan mountains, in order to harvest Shilajit, you have to go above 12,000 feet in altitude. And this presents quite a danger of climbing, and often these are located in very inconvenient areas. So regarding the controversy of Shilajit, let me just ask the simple question: would people be risking their lives climbing up to obtain such a high value product if it did not provide some benefit? So I think you can just through common sense answer that question effectively. Now, it has been used for roughly 3,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, which is quite a lot of experience. And as pointed out, it is quite dangerous. And there are several pitfalls in this industry or in this market with respect to this product. And I'm going to cover those today so that you can be an educated consumer. But let me just start off by telling you a little bit about exactly what it is and what it provides in terms of health benefits. So Shilajit is a essentially like a rock type substance. And it is, when purified, becomes a tarry, sticky substance. And this is formed only at high altitude in various mountain ranges around the world, including the Himalayas, the Caucasus Mountains, in Chile, and even in the Rocky Mountains in the United States, and probably elsewhere. It just hasn't been looked for or found yet. And this Shilajit is essentially what the result is over a long time period of microorganisms breaking down plant material. So it contains typical constituents of plants, including humic acid, fulvic acid, and various trace minerals, as well as small amounts of some other phytochemicals, some of which are said to have antioxidant properties. Now, there is much information about this famous substance out there on the internet. And it seems that even within the scientific literature, when they are trying to explain how it may have this or the other benefit from a clinical trial, that they kind of miss the main point about what Shilajit provides. And that is a variety of trace minerals. Now, trace minerals are metals, and including various heavy metals, that are essential for the functioning of our body. More than half of the proteins in the human body require small amounts of metals in order to function optimally. Now, many of us are already familiar with this if we think about what goes on in the blood, that we have hemoglobin, which is a protein, that, as we know, it is what binds oxygen and delivers it to our tissues from the lungs. And that binding of oxygen is dependent on having an iron atom inside the hemoglobin molecule. And that is what we would call a metalloprotein. It is a protein that has a small amount of a metal in it. And it turns out that most of the other proteins in our body also work that way, but they require different metals. And one example I commonly mention is superoxide dismutase, which is an important detoxification enzyme, and it requires manganese in order to work properly. We also might know that, for example, in spermatogenesis, or creation of male sperm, that zinc is an important metal that is required for optimal function. The unfortunate truth is that we don't know fully all of the different minerals that are required for optimal health. And there is some debate among the scientific community about this. And there's also evidence that some of the heavy metals that we might commonly think of as toxic, like even aluminum and arsenic, that there's some evidence that we may actually need some of those metals, but in a certain type of form that is different from the industrial or poisonous form. So this can be very confusing, and there is a problem of toxic metal contamination with some Shilajit products on the market that I will talk about. But unfortunately, due to our current food production system, these trace minerals are not present in most of the food supply. Now, with respect to animals, veterinarians do understand the importance of these trace minerals and often use them to address the health of animals raised for food, but they still may be missing some of these nutrients, and they might just give enough for the animal to maintain basic health, but not optimal health. So we all have a deficiency of these minerals, and this leads to a decrease in function of various proteins and enzymes in our body that require these. And Shilajit is an excellent way to provide these minerals, along with potentially the benefits of fulvic acid, which can be a chelating substance and help remove harmful metals from the body, and also humic acid, which may have antioxidant and other health promoting properties. Now, let's get to some of the problems or perhaps myths and misinformation regarding Shilajit. So one is that, and this is even with recent presentations. I saw a video of a licensed physician talking about this, and he said right at the beginning of the video, there are no human studies to support the health benefits of Shilajit, and that is a big false. So there are animal studies, of course. For example, there are 2 studies looking at rats that were made diabetic by giving them some kind of chemical that causes diabetes. And they gave those rats Shilajit, and they did improve their parameters related to diabetes, but there were no studies in humans with diabetes. However, there are 2 studies, both are randomized controlled trials that are fairly well done. Now, they do have relatively small number of people, but around 100 people in each study. And one of these looks at testosterone and some other sex hormones. And the other one actually looks at sperm counts and sperm motility, as well as some of the sex hormones. And in both of these studies, they were consistent with each other. Both showed an increase in testosterone of around 20%, as well as the study looking at sperm showed increase in sperm counts and increase in sperm motility. So these are very positive indicators of a fertility and sexual functioning benefit. And interestingly, that is one of the main applications that this substance has been promoted in Ayurvedic medicine itself over the last 3,000 years. So in my opinion, there is some very compelling evidence about the health benefits. Now, there also are toxicology studies in animals and humans showing that it is a very safe substance, and the amount that is required to produce an LD50 or a lethal dose for 50% of the animals is 4 orders of magnitude larger than the therapeutic dose. So that's, multiplying by 10,000 times the dose. So unless we go crazy and eat a whole jar, it is an extremely safe substance. Now, there is a real concern, as mentioned in the video, about fake or adulterated Shilajit. And this could be a substance that is completely something else and not Shilajit at all. Or it could be that Shilajit is cut with other materials to essentially make it cheaper. And there are a variety of materials that are commonly used, and these include coal, fertilizer, and a mineral wax called ozokerite. And there may be others. I've even heard that sawdust may be mixed with Shilajit resin in order to make it less expensive. So it is important to know the source of the product that you're buying and be confident that their product is the real deal, that it is genuine and not fake. And I have some anecdotes to tell you about my experience trying to find a supplier of Shilajit when I first started selling it in my shop. So stick around for that story. Now, the next problem is that there can be contamination of the Shilajit, and this can be with a variety of problematic components, especially heavy metals, but could be other chemicals. And this can occur because of other mining operations that may be going on the same mountain. When the raw Shilajit is harvested, it is generally first dissolved in water, usually boiling water, and then it is filtered. And this is to remove various impurities, and it is an important step. Many times when it's harvested on the mountain, the individual harvesting it will do this right on the mountain. Now, if they source their water from a stream that happens to be downstream of another mining operation, then there could be a lot of toxic substances in that water. And this has been known to occur in some areas. So it's important that distilled water or reverse osmosis water would be used for this reconstitution and purification process, which is, of course, the process that we use to make our Shilajit. Now, also, there have been reports because of some of the countries where this is produced, like in India, that there may be exploitation of child labor in the harvesting and manufacture of this process. So that is something to certainly be aware of and be concerned about. Now, I mentioned heavy metals, and I also want to mention mycotoxins, because the raw Shilajit often has growth of microorganisms, including fungi, and it may have heavy metals in it. So it's important that whatever product you're looking for, that there is a clear testing results for the product that shows that the heavy metals of concern, like mercury, lead, cadmium, and arsenic, are at very, very low and safe levels. Now, there are levels that are recommended by the FDA for food substances, for example, but there are many who criticize, saying that those tolerances are too permissive and we still get too much exposure to heavy metals. So I want to bring up Mike Adams, also known as the Health Ranger, and this is an area of concern that he has reported about extensively. And in fact, on his website, you can find that he publishes his own guidelines for what level of these heavy metals are safe and has different levels of grading. And these are far more stringent than the government guidelines that I mentioned before. So this could be a way that you can find the heavy metal levels of the product you're interested in and compare them with Mike Adams' recommendations and see how safe they are. And if they meet his top level of grades, then you know that you're having a product that is very, very safe. And of course, mine meets those standards. In fact, the level of mercury in my Shilajit is non-detectable. So there are, two things that you should also know about any product that you consider, is that in addition to the heavy metal testing, there should be also a certificate of analysis that tells you which minerals are actually in there and how many of them there are. And I would say anytime you have around 50 or higher minerals, that should be considered, in my opinion, a complete sample of the trace minerals that would need for optimal health. And there are products, of course, that have more than that, and there are many products that have fewer than that, but the certificate of analysis will tell you specifically which minerals there are. Now, I want to just issue a couple of cautions to people that may be trying this product for the first time. And these are kind of good cautions or good risks in a way, because the reality is that Shilajit is so effective in certain ways that it can put you in danger in certain situations. So let me explain what I mean. If you are taking blood pressure medicines for high blood pressure, for example, Shilajit can result in lowering your blood pressure to more normal levels. And this suggests that mineral deficiencies may be involved in blood pressure regulation. The problem is that if the Shilajit lowers the blood pressure, and it would do that by reversing the underlying cause of the high blood pressure, then the blood pressure medicine can make your blood pressure go too low, and you could end up lightheaded or even, pass out or have serious health problems. So you want to be very cautious about taking this when you're on blood pressure medicines, and it might be a good idea to have some supervision, or at least be very conservative and maybe decrease the dose of your blood pressure medicines or monitor it very carefully. Now, a similar thing is true with diabetes medications. And there are anecdotal reports of this happening, that the blood sugar will start to go down due to the Shilajit, and the medications for diabetes, which also cause the blood sugar to go down, can actually cause it to go too low. And this is extremely dangerous. So anytime you're doing natural health interventions that could address diabetes, you have to be very, very cautious of this issue, that it's not a problem in the short term if your blood sugar goes high, but it is a very serious problem if it goes too low. So please be a little cautious. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about my Shilajit and what I went through when I was trying to source it, to highlight some of the pitfalls that I've discussed so far today. So I learned originally about Shilajit from Dr. Jennifer Daniels, who taught me quite a bit early in my natural healing scholarship. And I bought some myself, just picked kind of a random brand because she didn't recommend a particular brand or formulation, and did notice some benefits. So I think I might have picked okay. And I knew that it was largely produced in the Himalayas, in India and Nepal, as well as in Russia from the Caucasus Mountains. So I started to search around on the internet to find suppliers or manufacturers of Shilajit for wholesale, so that I could buy some and then, sell it because of the value. Now, what I noticed is that I got a lot of seedy businessmen interacting with me who only were interested in the quantities that I was going to order, but were not interested in providing any information about how their product is sourced, or any testing, like heavy metal testing or a certificate of analysis. So they basically just wanted the money, and they were going to send you whatever they had, and maybe it includes some documentation or maybe not. And I felt really uncomfortable. I thought, like I was trying to buy drugs, walking around the street or something in this process. So I kind of backed off and searched around a little bit more to see, where is the high quality product coming from. And I was very lucky to connect with Phoenix Aurelius, because he had been partnering with an individual who was directly harvesting it, a one-man operation, and they had sourced it in the Rocky Mountains. And to me, it was really fascinating how they identified where the Shilajit was, because when I saw that documentary that I showed at the beginning, they were using binoculars and they kind of knew where to look and identified it by sight. However, this particular gentleman, he waited until a rain came, and then he looked for where the animals were going, because it turns out that the rain dissolves the Shilajit from these deposits that are in the cracks of rocks, like very high up, and animals that can navigate those altitudes will go there after a rain to lick up the dissolved Shilajit in the rainwater. And of course, this provides them a source of minerals very similar to a salt lick. So they would find where the animals went, and that would identify the source. And they were very careful not to take too much, because they wanted to leave some behind for the animals. So each source, they only took a certain percentage of what was there, leaving an adequate supply to sustain the animals going forward. So this was very appealing to me, that there was one man harvesting it, one man purifying it and formulating it. And so this is how I developed my supply of Rocky Mountain Mumio, as we sometimes call it. And you can find on my shop page links to the heavy metal testing and the certificate of analysis, so you can see exactly what the high quality is. And please do go compare it to the Health Rangers thresholds. Now, I did do one thing that makes this product a bit different than many others, and I think it is a point of confusion, because you can find Shilajit that is in a variety of different formulations. Now, when it's in the mountain, it's really kind of like a rock, and you can't consume it in that raw form, because one, there are impurities, and two, the texture is not right. Now, after it's dissolved in water and filtered and then dried, it forms a tarry resin. And how thick the resin is depends on the water content that's left behind, and sometimes water is added to make it a little bit more thin. Now, occasionally this is dried out really thoroughly into a powder, which could be formulated into tablets or capsules as well. So you could see it in this tarry resin form. You can see it in the powder form. Now, what I found is that if you just add a little bit more distilled water, you can turn it into a liquid. And that makes it much more convenient. And I'll explain, because when you have this tarry resin, often the dose is considered to be a pea-size amount, which is quite subjective, but you'll see that it's very sticky. It kind of makes a mess. You never know exactly how much you're getting. You'd have to weigh it to know, and weighing it itself would be very difficult because it sticks to everything that it touches. You can take it on like a little spatula and put it in some water and stir it, and it will, the spatula will come out clean, but everything else is a bit challenging. However, if you add a little bit more water and make it a liquid, then you have something that you can easily measure and manipulate just with a little graduated dropper. And droppers are standardized so that each drop is 0.05 milliliters, or 1/20th of a milliliter, or 1/100th of a teaspoon. So because it's so easy to measure it out, you can get a very accurate measured dose, and you don't have that mess or stickiness of the resin. So that's why we formulated that way. And the only difference is you basically take the tarry resin and add some distilled water to it to a standard concentration. All right. Well, I've talked about the basics of Shilajit today, what it is, how it is harvested in nature, some basic health facts about it, but mostly I have told you how to avoid the risks and pitfalls of this amazing product, which is sometimes called nature's Viagra, because I have found through my own personal experience, as well as reviewing all the available clinical research and knowing about its long history in Ayurvedic medicine, have concluded that this is a very valuable product. And I know that we all need some source of trace minerals in order to be optimally healthy. All right. So I have time for a couple of questions. If you want to put them on the screen, Alexander, thank you. All right. Ezoro asks, do you test the Shilajit you sell for toxic chemicals on a periodic basis? Well, yes, it is tested specifically for toxic heavy metals, which is the most common type of contaminant. Where this is harvested is far away from any industrial or agricultural areas. It's pretty much in the raw wilderness. So I think, and there are no other mining operations in this area. So I think it's very, very low chance that there would be additional toxic substances. But also, you should know that you can't just, take something and test it for, every possible toxic substance. You have to test for specific things. And sometimes it can be very challenging to test for certain things. For example, testing products for glyphosate. There was a scientist who developed a way to test vaccines for glyphosate, right? Also known as Roundup. And it turns out that it's quite complicated just to test for that one molecule. So it's not possible to, have one test or any kind of test that just looks at anything toxic. So the product that we have is tested for the things that are commonly found to contaminate it, like microorganisms and their toxic products, as well as the heavy metals. But we don't specifically test for other toxic substances. And I'm not aware of any other competitors who do that either. All right. Pamela Smith asks, would you recommend Shilajit for building bone strength? Well, it is a little bit complicated to talk about Shilajit for specific types of health issues that haven't been specifically studied. So if we look at the animal and human research on Shilajit, we'll find that there are, a few key areas that it's been looked at, such as cognitive health and dementia, metabolic disease and diabetes, fertility, libido, and sex hormones. And those are, the main areas. Now, we can certainly reason, however, that every system in our body requires various trace minerals because of what I explained earlier about the metalloproteins and how they function. So, of course, the same is true with bones as well. So there is likely to be some benefit if you are deficient in those minerals. But let me also mention that many of the issues with bones, arthritis, osteopenia, etc., also are a result of a deficiency in collagen, and specifically the amino acids that your body needs to make collagen, like glycine. So eating a collagen-rich diet is also very important to address various issues related to bone health. Okay. Jerbear67 asks, do you recommend a protocol of giving the body a break from time to time from Shilajit? Well, we should always have a break from everything, in my opinion. Once you have repleted your body with adequate minerals and you're feeling that you're functioning in optimal health, then you don't need to continue, in my opinion, taking Shilajit at the full dose every single day. You can go to sort of a maintenance schedule. Now, if you don't continue to take it periodically, you will become deficient in trace minerals again at some point in the future. So what I usually say is taking it 4 to 5 days a week. It would be adequate for maintenance purposes. Okay, I think we could take one more question. Mindy Spitz asks, you mentioned sperm and testosterone boosting as a benefit of Shilajit. What benefits are there for women? Now, this is interesting. There aren't human studies that look specifically at women, but having an increase in testosterone actually would be beneficial for women as well if there's a deficiency. Now, there is some indication that it actually acts on follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, which can have downstream effects that would be different for men and women, but appropriate to your optimal physiology and functioning. So I was actually planning to mention this, but I left it out earlier. There is some concern because of its propensity to increase testosterone. Will this be problematic for women? And I think there are, two things to look at. One is that women can be deficient in testosterone as well. And this, some indications of this may be a decreased libido, maybe one, for example, and this is certainly more common with postmenopausal women. But the effects of Shilajit are not, specific for testosterone. Remember, it's providing nutrients your body needs. And it stands to reason that in the biosynthesis of our sex hormones, including testosterone, but going back to the stimulating hormones, that there probably are minerals required for those processes. And if we replenish those minerals, then our body will use its wisdom to make the right things that it needs. So if you're a woman and it increases your testosterone, it's because you didn't have enough testosterone to begin with. And if it increases your estrogen, it would be for the same reason. So I think, I would not be concerned about any issues, and you can try it for yourself and see how the things you're trying to address may improve if you're a woman. Also, let me mention that although there might be information out there to the contrary, I think it's critical that during pregnancy and while nursing that you have a good source of trace minerals in your diet, and that's also going to provide the trace minerals for the baby. So this is definitely a strong thing to consider, whether it be Shilajit or another trace mineral source. All right, Carol Mapleston asks, can I give it to my healthy 2-year-old grandson? In my opinion, it would be completely safe, although you would use a lower dose than for adults. And now, being that this child is 2, they may not be still nursing, but if they are nursing, the better way to do this is to have the mother take it, and then the minerals will be present in the breast milk. And for children, Shilajit can be mixed with a variety of foods and beverages that would sort of mask the bitterness of the taste. It goes really well with things like tomato sauce, for example, in soups and sauces in general. Traditionally, it has been mixed with things like butter and ghee, as well as unpasteurized honey, and that is in Ayurvedic medicine. So you could always consider a more traditional way of taking it like that. All right. Well, thank you so much for participating in today's Healthy Living live stream. Once again, let me remind you to sign up for my free newsletter and to get many other free health and law resources on my website, Andrew Kaufman, MD. We will be having a sale very soon on these products, and you'll be the first to know if you are signed up for my newsletter. All right. I look forward to seeing everyone again next week for another Healthy Living live stream.